Llyr. I'm going to try to, I shouldn't even say it. I'm going to try to see if we can finish this on Wednesday. We'll probably finish it on Friday and start Terran Wanderer on Friday. But I want to start, as with the other two books, with the author's note, where Alexander writes, bottom of Roman numeral, it would be 8, talking about the Castle of Llyr, more romantic than the previous novels. Why? Because Terran is suddenly noticing, his feelings for Eilonwy, etc., etc. And then he says, the adventure should hold something beyond the fairy tale elements of a magic golden bauble, that's one of the elements, a vengeful queen, a mysterious castle, and rivals for the hand of a princess. All things that, you can find in a variety of fairy tales. That is, you might not find all of them in a single fairy tale, but you'll find some of them, or an individual one of them, in quite a few different fairy tales. The nature of fantasy allows happenings which reveal most clearly our own frailties and our own strengths. That is, fantasy allows us to see ourselves more clearly in that otherworld setting than we might otherwise do here. The inhabitants of Prydain are fantasy figures. I hope they are also very human. That is, that people recognize those kind of frailties, follies, and such. So we begin with chapter 1, and we hear, we start with a description of Eilonwy, and we find out that Eilonwy is going away. She is leaving Caer Dallben, and Dallben tells her at the bottom of the page, no matter what, you will always have a place here. You will always be welcome here, etc., etc. Okay. Tells her where she's going, and he tells her, top of page 4, you shall learn how a princess should behave. Describe Eilonwy's behavior up to this point. Okay, not like a princess. So how does she behave? We've got a phrase, right, that we still use somewhat to describe a young girl who doesn't, quote unquote, act like a young girl. She's a tomboy. She wants to be in the thick of things. She wants to be in the middle. When Terran and the others go off on a secret mission in the previous book, what does she do? Sneaks out after them, follows them. Why? She wants to be part of the rescue party, all that kind of stuff. I don't care about being a princess. And since I'm already a young lady, how else could I behave? In other words, don't talk to me about behaving like a young lady, because I am a young lady. Therefore, any way I behave is the way a young lady behaves. There's a certain amount of good logic to that. Okay? What's missing in her logic? Should, ought, etc. That kind of imperative that suggests, you can do better than what you are, etc. Dallben. I've never seen a fish with skinned knees. She goes on and says, that's like asking a fish to learn how to swim. So he follows her metaphor and says, I've never seen a fish with skinned knees, torn robe, unshod feet. So, go back to not being a fish, but to being a girl. She's got scraped up knees, the hem of her dress is torn, and she runs around barefoot. What's his point? And what are the points, let's say, of Queen Rudlum and King Rudlum and Queen Teleria? How should a princess appear? Elegant. If you've seen it, I don't care which one, because they both work. The Princess Diaries with Anne Hathaway and Mary Poppins. Julie Andrews, okay? Where you have someone who does not appear at all princess-ish, who transforms. It's the Cinderella story, right? So, he says, they would ill become him, that is, skin, knees, torn robe, unshod feet, as they ill become you. What's his point? Is he just saying, come on, Ilanwi, you're a woman, young lady, soon to be a woman, you gotta start appearing like one. Is this some, gender nonsense? Or is Dolbin kind of saying something deeper than that? Is he kind of saying, you're special. There's more to you than what we just see on the outside. And he's trying to get that what's inside to come outside. Kind of like, if I can use this analogy or metaphor, kind of like when a diamond cutter looks into a raw diamond and just sees a chunk of crystal. A raw diamond in and of itself, yeah, it has value. It has worth. When does it get its real value? When that diamond cutter meticulously cuts facets and shapes it and brings out the true internal beauty of that diamond. Okay? Child, child, do you not see? For each of us comes a time when we must be more than what we are. Well, it's kind of stupid, isn't it? How do you be more than what you are? I think I used the motto of one of the branches of the military. Be all you can be. What does that mean? Don't settle for what you are. Don't settle for just, whatever cards life deals you. Try to get more out of that. But he's also saying, what about her? Are each of you in this room the same person you were a year ago? No, you're not. You might have the same name. You have the same body. It might be a little different, okay? But you're not the same person. Why? Because that person, metaphorically, died a year ago and was reborn the next day, and the next day after that, and the next day after that, and the next... How so? Because you've piled on 365 days of experiences that changed that person from a year ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, to get back to more of Ilanwi's age, to what you are now. That's part of what he's getting at. Everybody has a journey to undergo. He's kind of telling her, time to get moving. Time to speed up the process. Okay? Notice he gives Taryn then a command. Watch over her carefully. How much older is Taryn than Ilanwi? If at all. We don't know, but it's not more than a year or two. Okay? And how do you think Ilanwi takes that? Keep an eye on her. It's like, yeah, right. He tries to give her a command. What's she going to do? No, she's going to, rebel against it. Okay? So, Taryn and Gergie are going to take her and such. Bottom page 5. Taryn's talking with Call, and what's he talking about? Oh, how nice it's going to be when she's finally out of here. We'll get some peace and quiet. She'll stop talking, or at least we won't hear her. There'll be less to worry about. She's always getting into trouble. Call's sitting there going, yeah, right. And then Taryn says, I'll miss her. Did you tell her? No, I should have. But every time I began talking about it, I felt odd, Taryn says, page 5. Call. It may be we know least what we treasure most. We know least what we treasure most. How? Where is what we treasure most? Is it out there? No. Where do we put our quote-unquote treasure? In our heads? Or as Jamari says, in our hearts? It's inside though, right? Whether you put it up here, or down here, it's inside. Why do we put it in here? Or up here? We lock it up, we keep it safe, and we don't have to think about it. We don't have to deal with it. We don't have to... If you read Tolkien's essay Okay? And when he's talking about the recovery section, he says, the thing we need recovery most for are our, he calls it, familiars. Well, what's at the root of that? Family. Why? Because we tend to take that for granted. In a quote-unquote functional family, a quote-unquote typical, normal, whatever phrase you want to use, family, you what? You see them day in, day out. Whether it's parents, siblings, children, and what happens to the things you see every day in, day out? You no longer pay much attention to it. Like, I'm not going to use pet call as an example because it's so ugly. Beauty outside. Okay? Tolkien says, we've taken that thing, that familiar, we've locked it up inside, and we act like we possess it. And what the recovery does is it makes us look at that thing as being brand new. Those of you who are in a relationship, I don't care whether it's a 2-week relationship, not a one-night stand. That's not a relationship. 2 week, 2 month, 2 year, 20 year, etc. Try to remember when you first met that person. Or maybe not the first moment you met that person, but the first moment you were aware. There's something here. That's what he's talking about. Every time we see that individual, that family member, it ought to be like that first shoot of love. That, wow, my life will be hollow without this person. Call. It may be we know least what we treasure most, but we still have more than enough to keep us busy when you come back. In other words, Taran's doing what? He's transporting Llyr there and then coming home. So Call's reminding him, oh, don't worry, Taran. We'll keep you busy. And you will learn, my boy, there is nothing like work to put the heart at rest. Why? Work also puts what else at rest? Especially if it's hard work, if it's farm work. You get up at sunrise, you go to bed at sunset, and what do? Or you go inside at sunset, and then what do? You eat and crash. There's not time to think. There's not time to feel and emote and such. Taran, I guess so. Okay, so we have Prince Rune show up, page 7. And, page 6. As they get to the water's edge, and describe Prince Rune. Clumsy. What else? What's another adjective for clumsy? Bumbling. Is he smart? Stupid? Can we tell? Is he brave? Is he a coward?
He thinks he's brave.
He thinks he's brave, meaning he intends to be brave. He just can't pull it off usually. That is, he tries, but he often fails. Not fails in the sense of he runs away from danger, but in the sense of he can't complete what he sets out to do. Why? Because he's a bumbling, clumsy oaf. Okay? So, let's see here. We find out that Rune is in command, page 7. We're going to skip a bit. Go on to page 10. 10? Yeah, 10. Taran is talking with Llyr, They're aboard ship making their way to Mona, and Taryn calls him, actually, go to the bottom of page 9, Prince of Mona. He's no more than a princeling, a clumsy, muddle-headed baby, commanding the voyage. If the sailors listened to him, we'd be aground in no time. I've never sailed a ship, but I've no doubt I could do it better than he. I've never seen anyone so feckless. Ilonwy, feckless? He does seem a little dense, but I'm sure he means well. And I have a feeling he has a good heart. In fact, I think he's rather nice. So when Ilonwy says he means well and he has a good heart, what's her real point? Does Rune remind us of anybody? Louder? Ellidyr? Okay, before we say Taryn, how's he different from Ellidyr? He's not mean. What else? Is Rune confident? Does he swagger? Does he swagger like Ellidyr does? No. He doesn't throw prince this, prince that all around. Okay? Taryn. How's he like Taryn? Taryn's pretty feckless in the first novel. Okay? Kind of pretty much a lot of what he does goes wrong. But, as Ilonwy will tell us in the first two novels, what are kind of distinguishing hallmarks of Taryn? He means well, and he has a good heart. He's trying. He's really trying. I mean, even Gwydion said, you really thought I was in danger. You really thought you were protecting me. You were really sacrificing yourself for myself. That's a good heart. That's meaning well. Taryn, well, I suppose so. Or I suppose you do. Because he gave you his arm to lean on. Little jealousy there. A gallant, princely gesture. Lucky he didn't pitch you over the side. Well, it was polite at least. Not like Taryn is being right now. Which is sometimes assistant pig keepers aren't. Taryn, an assistant pig keeper. Yes, that's to be my lot in life. In other words, you just had to remind me again, didn't you? I was born to be one just as the princeling of Mona was born to his rank. He's a king's son, and I don't even know my parents. Why is it important that Rune is a prince and a king's son, and Taryn is not? Or at least he doesn't know if he is. Our author's note kind of hints at it. Who do princes marry? Princesses. What is Ilonwy? She's a princess. Who does not marry princesses? Assistant sig keepers. Assistant pig keepers. Okay? Stable boys. Or as Ellidyr called them, pig boys. Ilonwy, well, you can't blame Rune for being born. I mean, I dare say that's his father's sword he's got on. I dare say he's never drawn it except to frighten a rabbit. Does his birth make him worthy of his rank? Now Taryn's asking an important question. Worthy. What makes one worthy? As worthy as Gwydion, son of Dawn. Ilonwy says, well, I mean, Gwydion's the greatest warrior in Britain. You can't expect everyone to be like him. In other words, by expecting Rune to be like, Gwydion, that's just not fair. And it seems to me that if an assistant pig keeper does the best he can, and a prince does the best he can, there's no difference between them. What does Ilonwy says makes one worthy? What do you mean by your actions? Doing the best you can. That's it. That equates them. In other words, being a king's son or being a stable boy, there's no difference. Why? As long as you do the best you can. What did Adaon say when Taryn talked about honor in fighting? He says, I've marched off in great battles. He says, and there is greater honor in a field well plowed than, sorry, my brain must be dead this morning. In a field well plowed than in a field steeped in blood. Okay? Why? Because of that word well. Does it really take how do I want to phrase this? Does it take a lot of effort to kill? I mean, do you have to be really good at it? You don't really. You swing a sword hard enough. You thrust a sword hard enough or a spear hard enough, you're going to kill whatever it is you're trying to kill. But it takes work to plow a field, especially, in the quote-unquote technological period we're talking about here, where you're not, riding a tractor, using a tiller or something like that. You're maybe walking behind a horse or cattle, ox. Taryn, no difference. What do you mean? You spoke well enough of Rune. She finally sees it. You're jealous. Okay, now, what is that statement? You're jealous, whether applied in predate or here. What's it really mean? When one person says to somebody else, you're jealous, is it about the person's jealousy of a third person? What's it really mean? If person A says to person B, the person B is jealous of person C, what's it really mean? Person B likes me. You think I might run off with him, don't you? That's what it's getting at. Taryn said no more, but turned away and stared glumly at the water. Okay? So, let's skip a bit. We're going to skip that. Go to chapter 2. They get to Dennis Redant. Fluter shows up. Let's see here. Says he tried being a king for the best part of a year, page 17. So that gives us an idea of how much time has passed. So it was over a year from the first book to the second book. So now it's mostly a year from the second book to this book, at least. Okay. Page 19, they keep talking. Fluter tells Taryn and the others about the king and queen. They're decent sorts. Their chief steward seems to be fine. And the bottom of page 20, we see Gwydion. But it's not Gwydion as Gwydion is wont to appear. That is, it's not Gwydion as the road-stained traveler, and it's not Gwydion as Prince of Dawn. It's Gwydion instead in disguise as a cobbler. And he says, hear me well, should we be interrupted, I shall find a way to speak with you later. Tell one who I am. Eilonwy's in danger, and so are you. Okay? So, he tells Taryn, Eilonwy's in danger. What does that do for Taryn? Well, I'm not going back. I mean, I'm supposed to go back. I'm not going back to Caradolman, not while Eilonwy's in danger. So, they talk quite a bit. We're going to skip a bunch. Skip the rest of the chapter. Skip most of the next chapter. They follow... what's his name? Eilonwy disappears. We get chapter 5. Taryn bursts in on the king and queen while they're at breakfast. He says, where is Eilonwy? They say, we don't know. He tells them Mag the steward took off with her, and the king orders a hunt to find them. And then, bottom of 43, top of 44. Who's put in charge of the hunt? Rune. Why? Well, he's the king's son. Okay? Taryn says, top of 44, Rune in command. He says, what? Do you question his skill? Skill? He has none. I'd say yes. Taran is questioning his skill. He can barely knot a sandal lace, let alone ride a horse or wield a sword. The voyage to Mona, blah, 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 blah. What has Taran just done? What major faux pas has he committed?
Question the king.
Okay, what else? What has he told the king? Truth.
His son sucks.
Your son sucks. Your son's a bumbling moron. Okay? And the king says, once again, you speak the truth. Because what are you supposed to speak to the king? / president, you know. What he wants to hear. Do you think the king wants to hear it? No, he doesn't. So he says, you don't think I know my own son? Believe me, I know my own son. So, you got a burden of an oath to Dalbin. Now let me burden you with another one. He says, yeah, I've heard about you. I've heard about what you've done. So here's what I want you to do. I would entrust my son to you, bottom of 44, and beg you to let no harm befall him. So, yeah, you're going to go out with him. You're going to try to find Eilonwy, but you're also, so you have that task, but you're going to keep an eye on Rune. You're not going to let anything happen to him. So which of these two takes precedence? Finding Eilonwy or protecting Rune? I imagine in Taran's heart, finding Eilonwy, screw Rune. But he now has 2 oaths to fulfill. And then what does the king lay on him, just kind of like, icing on the cake? Why does he really not want Rune to fall to any harm, other than he's his son, he loves him, and all that kind of stuff? He's supposed to get married to Eilonwy. Top of 45. Eilonwy with Rune, her husband? He goes, yeah, yes. When she comes of age, we want him to wed. Does she know? No, nor does my son. I mean, she's a princess. Rune is of royal blood. Taran's like, makes sense. So what do you say, Taran? Will you help me? Will you give me your word? I will swear this oath. Your son will come to no harm if it lies in my power to keep him from it. I pledge my life to do so. Pledge my life. I will sacrifice myself to protect him. That's what that means. He says, okay. So Taran goes off. Page 47. Taran's talking with Fflewddur. And Fflewddur kind of says, I kind of expected you two to. Middle of that page. Eilonwy is a princess of the House of Llyr. You know my station as well as I. My station. My social status. Which is where? Lowest of the low. You don't really get any lower than assistant pig keeper. I guess you could take the assistant off. Actually, you can't. Because what is Call? Call's the pig keeper. Taran's the assistant to Call. Okay? Such a hope has never been in my mind. Liar, liar. It is only fitting for Eilonwy to be betrothed to one of her own rank. Do you remember when they found the sword of Durnwyn? Whatever it is. Durnwyn? What it said on the scabbard? Only one of royal blood. And then they said, no, it's not actually royal. It's noble blood. Okay? Just keep that there. Because we're going to come back to that in a while. So, Fflewddur goes, yeah, so you say. Remember, Fflewddur's quite a bit older than Taran. Fflewddur, I think we're told later on, he's like in his 30s or 40s. Okay? So, they go looking for Eilonwy, and Rune rides off somewhere. But he sees a squirrel or a rabbit, and Taran, page 50, thinks he might have fallen from his horse. Fluter says then we should go back to the rest of the band, ask them to help us. Terran, we'd lose too much time. Gurgi follows. Okay. And they, they're in trouble. Chapter 6. Terran says, we do nothing now but wait for dawn. Or we can do nothing now but wait for dawn. The Master of Horse cannot be too far away. Find him as soon as you can. Above all, do not delay the search for Eilonwy. I shall seek Prince Rune. So, Terran says, we're going to split up. You go back to the search party. I'll go off to Rune by myself. Why? Fluter didn't swear an oath. Only Terran did. What's uppermost in Terran's mind? Search party needs to find Eilonwy. When I find him, I'll rejoin you somehow. Fluter, do not wear out your heart with grief. Mag can't escape us for long. I don't believe he means to harm Eilonwy, but only bring her to Akron. Why? What's the thing about Akron and Eilonwy? Because remember, that's where she was when she discovered Fluter and Terran in the dungeons of Spiral Castle. Well, that comes out at the end of this novel. Okay? So, they make their way on, and they find a track. They follow the track, and they come to a broken down, thatched hovel, cottage, if you want. Okay? Round building with a thatched roof with holes and such in it. And they go in, and there's Prince Rune. Page 55, come in, you'd be amazed how comfortable, etc., etc. And Terran says, what are you doing? We left the search party to find you because you got lost. Middle of the page. As far as being lost goes, it seems to me you're the ones who got lost. Wherever I go, that's where the search is, if you see what I mean. He's what? He's in charge of the search party. Search party should have done what? When he turned and went off this direction. They should have followed him. What did Eilonwy say at the beginning? I am a young lady. Don't tell me how young ladies ought to behave. I am a young lady. This is how I behave. It's that kind of logic. After all, the one who's in command, Terran, yes. You command as you were born to as a king's son. Don't need to remind us we're under your orders. Notice what Terran doesn't do. Is part of his oath to the king to make sure that Rune feels like he's in command? No. What could he do? You bumbling, dumb, you-know-what? I had to promise your father that I would protect you. He could lay the cards straight out on the table. What would that do for Rune, though? Make him not feel worthy. Okay? So, they keep talking. And let's see here. They find a bundle, and in the bundle they find a book. Terran says you're welcome to it, etc., etc. You can't read the scroll. Bottom of 57. Terran keeps looking at it and says, wait. I think I found the name of whoever wrote them. Glue, it looks like. And the potions, it says you can use potions to make yourself bigger. Fluter's like, really? Maybe you've read that wrong. Fluter talks about, I've managed to learn a few things in my travels, etc., etc. And he says, maybe those are Glue's boots over there. And there's little tiny shoes. Okay? They keep talking, and page 59. We find out that Glue had a cat of sorts, and we read, you can see by his writing how excited Glue must have been. Lyan began to grow. Glue mentions he was obliged to make a new cage for her, and still another. How pleased he must have been. I can easily manage the little fellow, chuckling and brewing away for all he has worth, etc. They hear the horses run off, and chapter 7, we find out they are in the lair of Llyr, the cat. How big is this cat? Is it a house cat? No. It's like the size of a cougar. Okay? It's big enough to eat them. Okay? So they're pinned essentially in this hut. The cat is there. The cat's at the only means of escape. And Taryn whispers to Fluter, bottom of 63, make a little noise. Just make a little noise. Not too much, but so that Leon will look at you. Because Taryn's going to try to ease his way over. Nope, she's faster. Okay? Taryn, we can be hindered no longer. We got to find a way out. Okay? So, Fluter pulls out his harp and starts playing. And what do we know from popular culture about music? It has the ability to calm the savage beast. And the cat falls asleep. So, what can happen? As long as somebody keeps playing the harp, the others can leave, right? But somebody has to play the harp. This isn't a magical, auto harp. You press play and it'll play by itself and the others. So what does Fluter have to do? Page 67. Fly from here, urged the bard, never ceasing to pluck his harp strings. Begone, I've no idea how long she'll want to listen or how long I can keep playing. Taryn, there must be another way. We can't leave you. Fluter, I like it no more than you do, but this is your chance. Taryn pledged his life to keep Ruin safe. What is Fluter doing? The exact same thing. Not for Ruin, but for Taryn primarily. Okay? Or he thinks he is at least. So, Taryn and Ruin escape. And page 69. Ruin says, and we get a little bit more, appreciation of his character, a little bit more understanding of his character. I can guess what you're thinking, Ruin says in a low voice. If it hadn't been for me, you wouldn't be in this plight. And I'm afraid you're right. It's my fault things turned out as they did. I can only ask your forgiveness. I'm not the cleverest person in the world. What has Taryn been thinking about Ruin from almost the moment he met him?
He's clueless. Doesn't know
He's clueless. What else? Because he's a prince, he must be what? What are Taryn's two previous interactions with quote-unquote princes? Gwydion, Ellidyr. Okay. He's not like Gwydion. He's not like Ellidyr, other than from Taryn's perspective, he's a prince, and therefore he must know he's a prince, and therefore think something about himself as prince in terms of his rank. When he says, I'm not the cleverest person in the world, what is Ruin really saying?
Admitting his faults.
He's admitting his faults. Even my old nurse used to say I was all thumbs, but I hate being a blunderer. It's not what people expect of a prince. He knows what the expectations are. What are the expectations? Everything Taryn expects. But he also knows what? I don't meet those expectations. Any of you, you don't have to raise your hands, but any of you come from large families? I'm the youngest of 5. I'd go to school, and I was, there was like 3 years between me and the next one. And my 4 older siblings, there is at most like a year and a half between. I mean, they're boom, 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 boom. And in 3 years, accident, you know. I'd show up to school and they'd say, oh, you're da-da-da-da-da-da, brother. Yeah. What does that do when you go to the exact same schools your siblings go to? It creates expectations, especially if those older siblings pretty much all do fairly well, get good grades, brother's athletic, etc. Oh, so you can, you know, you're really fast too, like your brother. No, I wasn't a sprinter, not at all, you know, kind of thing. That's what Rune is fighting against. He knows what people expect of princes. I hate being a blunder. It's not what people expect. I didn't ask to be born into the royal house. That at least wasn't my doing. Yet who would like to have been born into a royal house? Taryn would. We don't get to ask where we're born, right? But since I was, I very much want to be worthy of it. Meaning, how can he be worthy of it? What have we already heard about him? What did Eilonwy say about both Rune and Taryn? If you do your best. He wants to be worthy of it. That shows his good heart and his right intent. Taryn, if you want to, then you shall. Suddenly, strangely touched by the Prince of Mona's frankness, and a little bit ashamed of his own unkind thoughts. I ask your own forgiveness. If I envied your rank, it was because I believe you held it as a lucky gift and took it for granted. Taryn says, can't take it for granted. You speak the truth. For a man to be worthy of any rank, he must strive first to be a man. Remember what Gwydion told him at the end of the previous book? Taryn's like, you know, I wanted to be a man. I wanted to be a hero. He saw Elodie kill him. Take his own life to save others. Sacrifice himself to save others. And Gwydion told him, you are going to be a man, Taryn. You can't shy away from that. But what kind of man are you going to be? You know, he kind of asked him. Rune, that's what I mean. That's why we must rejoin the Master of Horse. Okay? After all, I'm to be betrothed. Taryn, I didn't think you knew about that. Psh, come on. I sometimes hear a little more than I'm supposed to. Right? We will stop there. We will pick up again at the very end of chapter 8 on Wednesday. Even if we finish on Wednesday, we won't have a quiz on Castle of Llyr until Friday. Let me rephrase that. We will have a quiz on Friday on the chapter, on the Castle of Llyr.